Joining us right now as he does each and every Tuesday at 3 p.m. He is the man, the myth, the legend. Jeff Nadu joins us here on 97.3 ESPN wearing an Eagles shirt there. Jeff, how you doing today?
Pretty good, Josh. How are you?
Doing pretty good. So, obviously, you're wearing the Eagles shirt. Eagles season is here. They're finally in the building. And one of my favorite parts about football being here is there's so much speculation that's rational and completely irrational at the same time. So I want to ask you, as a more rational individual than most of the world out there, what is reasonable expectations for the Eagles this year? Because I know a lot of people, there's a handful of people who are like, this team is no more than a 4-win team last year. Another group of people are like, this team's got to win 8 games this year. Where does Jeff Nadu fall on the Philadelphia Eagles?
Well, I think you made the point that I'm rational. Yeah, very much am. Very realistic as well. I'm not one of these Eagle fans that's going to tell you they're going to go undefeated every year and win the Super Bowl. I pretty much put every team in this city under the microscope. And I think the Eagles are actually going to be a pretty decent football team this year. Look, here's the issue, though, Josh. It really all comes down to the guy under center. If the guy under center plays well, I think they will win games. And I think with the schedule they have, I think they're a team that could compete to get into the playoffs. Why can't they? They finally have some people to throw the football to. Your offensive line, you would hope that the injury luck last year doesn't go over to this year. I think everybody coming back healthy is huge there. You've got a budding running back and Miles Sanders. You've got some depth now with Gainwell and Kerryon Johnson and Boston Scott. And, you look at the move they just made recently. I have been on the milk cart and the soapbox for months. It's time to sign Steven Nelson. He's a guy that could come in right away. He can take away just attacking the other corner opposite Darius Slay. He gives you something on the back end, an instant starter. You can allow guys like McPherson and other younger guys to get some reps, but they don't have to be dependent on like a Cravon LeBlanc had to be late in the season last year. I just love that move. You've got Avonte Maddox back into his normal nickel position. I like their pass rush. It's always been very good. I think it's a pretty solid football team. I'm really honest. Again, though, the biggest issue they may have comes under quarterback. If the quarterback plays well, I think this could be a fringe playoff team. I really do.
Well, Jeff, the other thing is that, let's be realistic, Carson Wentz lost them 3 games by himself last year. He
Correct.
was statistically the worst quarterback in the NFL. So if Jalen Hurts is better than the worst quarterback statistically last year, you're probably going to win some games, because at least one thing Jalen Hurts doesn't do is stare down receivers and throw interceptions, because he's too stubborn and too egotistical to actually look around the field.
Yeah, and, you look at Hurts, from the 4 games or so that we saw him in, he played very well. I think it's important to remember, Josh, he was throwing to Acme cashiers and mechanics down the street. That's who he was throwing to last year. You've all of a sudden got some guys in here that can catch the football, and it allows guys that actually played pretty well, like a Greg Ward, to kind of go into becoming a Jason Avant type of player. They don't need to be, the number one option here. You've got a guy at Dallas Goedert who's now the tight end of this team. You've got the offensive line as well. You had 3rd or 4th string guys playing last year. Jack Driscoll had to play a lot of snaps. You had guys that have no business on a starting roster on a football team playing last year. So there's a lot that I think that even after he played decently well in those games, now you look at this year, he should really kind of elevate to another level.
I know a lot of books have the Eagles set at 6.5 wins. Would Jeff Nadu take the over on that?
Yes, Jeff Nadu already did. I think 6.5 is too low. I think at worst, this is a 7-win team. The schedule, like I said, is pretty easy. You've got to figure, I think if you can flip in the NFC East, I think you're going to have a pretty good opportunity to win 7 games or more. I don't think their schedule is particularly difficult. In fact, I know it isn't. As I said, it's one of the easiest, if not the easiest, in the NFL. I think the first game out of the gate, first 2 games out of the gate, I think that's a very winnable game down in Atlanta. Eagles usually play decently well there. I think the 49ers are a bit overrated. I think they can go beat the Carolina Panthers, the Raiders. The Lions are a layup. That might be the worst team in the NFL. The Broncos, that's a very winnable game. The Jets. This schedule is laughable. I think if they can coin flip and go, let's say 3-3, 4-2, possibly in the NFC East, because I think they're coin flippy against Washington and the Giants. I think Dallas, they'll be underdogs, but I think they can win one of two at least there. They've got some tough ones, obviously the Chiefs and the Bucs, but largely this is a very winnable 8-9 game schedule, I think.
Oh, I agree with you on that. Jeff Nadu joining us here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Josh Hennig filling for Mike Gill on a Tuesday. Because the other thing, Jeff, with the Eagles is you mentioned the offensive line a little bit ago. They had the most offensive combinations in NFL history in a season. So if you get some health out of the offensive line and you're in a division where no Tomlinson over with the Giants anymore, I still don't believe the Cowboys could just be that much better defensively all of a sudden just because they have Dan Quinn. And Washington, they're a great defense, but you only face them twice this year. So if you get split with Washington, deal with the Giants and the Cowboys, you're at that 7-8 win almost automatically. And okay, fine, you lose to the Chiefs and the Bucs. Who isn't going to lose to the Chiefs and the Bucs this year?
Yeah, and I think you have some real layup games in the Broncos, Jets, Lions. I mean, the Panthers, you should win those 4 games. And I think if you can do that, I think you'll hit that over, right? I think it's just too low. This is not a 4-win football team to me. Now, look, they have – and I truly believe this, Josh. I think there's a lot of things to shake out with this team. I think they will end up trading for Deshaun Watson. If you ask me right now what I think they're going to do, I think the most important thing that people need to understand about Deshaun Watson – and – Josh, occasionally people find themselves, and again, I know, an emotional thing, it's a touchy subject, right? But the truth of the matter is, Deshaun Watson has not done anything criminally wrong, according to the government or the state or whoever. No one has brought criminal charges. And this stuff is not going to shake out until next year. I guess I'd ask myself if I'm the NFL, what exactly are you suspending him? I think that's what they'll say, right? Because there are other civil cases, yes.
Right, but for example, Jeff, we know the NFL is super inconsistent because on one hand, remember what happened with Adrian Peterson? He got banned from the league for a year. That was something very minimal in the grand scheme of things. Ray Rice never went to jail, never was criminally charged. Him and his wife are still together, but he was banned from the league. You know what I mean? Right. Or Dante Starworth, he drinking and driving, murdered somebody, went to jail, suspended for the year, back in the NFL. This league is so inconsistent. So I don't even know what side of the bed Goodell's going to wake up on tomorrow when it comes to Watson.
Yeah, it really is. But I will say this. The Eagles are doing as much due diligence as they can to figure out what the outcome of this is going to be. And, look, they know a lot more than fans do. I know fans have their thought on what they want, but it's important to realize these are all again, that's the law side of it. This is allegations. I'm not saying Deshaun Watson didn't do this. He may have. I have no idea. I wasn't there. But again, until there are convictions or they settle in court or whatever, they are allegations. It's that simple.
Yeah, and also it's just a murky gray area that we just don't know yet. Yes. We just don't know. And I think the unknown is what's really the difficult part here.
They are, and this is a concern if you're, an Eagles fan. If they do bring him in, it is going to be a huge. You thought Michael Vick when they signed him.
Oh, this is 10 times bigger, Jeff.
This was going to be out of control in this city. People are going to, I remember when they signed Michael Vick. This is a guy, Michael Vick, that did his time, paid his debt to society, no matter what you think of him, and deserves a second chance, as does anyone that commits a crime, I think, and they're let out of prison. I remember seeing at preseason games, there were hundreds of people down there protesting.
Yep.
Do they want to take that on? They better believe that what they have is concrete and nothing's going to happen. Because if that all happens, this could be a really big issue for this team.
Well, Jeff, what about the other side? What if you give up all those draft picks and those players, and then he plays 3 games for you, and he's suspended the rest of the year?
But, Josh, I think that's what I'm saying. I think there's got to be something that they're getting from the league that says, look, he is not going to be suspended. It's not going to happen. Now, the concern is you give up all this because, look, they don't just want picks. They want players and picks, right?
Yes.
And I'm guessing Jalen Hurts would be part of what's going to go on here. So let's say you do get him for a season, right? And maybe you lose the second play. I don't know, whatever they do. Because, look, if he comes here and is the quarterback of this team, they're probably the favorite in the division if he's the quarterback, right? the question is, what if he, in turn, next year, bad things, because he has said he's not settling on any of this stuff. He's going to prove that none of this is true or whatever. But let's just say he's suspended until 2023. Well, then what? And at that point, it's all a mess anyway. What do you do then? I guess you just draft someone next year, right? But you won't have those picks. So you can't do that.
Right.
So it is a complete mess. But I think they know a lot more than we do. And let's hope they're crossing all their T's and dotting all their I's here.
Absolutely. Jeff Nadu joining us here as he does each and every Tuesday on the Sports Page at Jeff Nadu on Twitter. Jeff, before we get to the NBA draft, I want to bring up, I've been holding this for you. So I stole this information from Doug Kazarian of ESPN. So the last 10 times the Dallas Cowboys were favorites to win the division in Vegas, they only won the division once. Every team that's been on Hard Knocks has never been to the Super Bowl, and only one team got to the conference championship game. So that tells me that everybody who thinks the Cowboys are going to be good this year needs to take a long walk on a short pier and cool off.
Well, I'd be one of them. I bet them to win the Super Bowl already. But look, I hear you. Listen, the good thing about trends, they're meant to be broken or changed. We'll see. I think offensively, they're a top 3 team.
Yes.
But they have the same, I think, question mark. They have a quarterback coming off a major injury. How does he play? They may have some injuries. We never know. That's the great equalizer in football, injuries. You could be the Chiefs, but Patrick Mahomes could get injured in the second week. We never really know. But I think you made a good point. Defensively, the good thing they have is they can't get much worse than they were defensively. You got to figure they did some things to improve.
Right.
And the offense will be so good that I don't think they have to give up 19 points a game to win games. I think if they could just make a 3 or 4 point uptick in defense, I think they'll be just fine.
Now, over at Jeff Nadu on Twitter, the Jeff Nadu mock draft for the top 10 is over there on your Twitter. And I'm very intrigued by the top of this draft because you have been saying forever about Cade Cunningham. I remember you last year talking about Cade Cunningham here on 97.3 ESPN. But there's speculation out there, and I want to ask you that he didn't have a great workout, that Jalen Green had a better workout. Do you believe any of this speculation, or do you think it's all just a smokescreen?
No, I think this is about as cut and dry as Trevor Lawrence to the Jags was. I mean, he is. I think he's minus 80,000 to go number one. Listen, the Detroit Pistons aren't stupid. No one is not taking Cade Cunningham. Cade Cunningham's the number 1 pick. It's that simple. And I know workouts are workouts. Pro days are pro days. Sometimes you have a good day, sometimes you have bad. But what Cade Cunningham is to me, he's Ben Simmons, a little smaller, but Ben Simmons with a jumper, and he's just a better player overall. He's what I think Ben Simmons could have been if he had a shot. That's what Cade Cunningham is. He's a transcendent type of player. I think he's going to go in, I think, to a decent basketball team. I think they have a decent core there. And I know they didn't win a lot of games last year, but they have a good coach. They play defense. They've got a lot of young kids. I think to them to get the number 1 pick, I think is huge. Detroit is on the uptick to me. I look at them a lot different than I look at the Rockets or Cleveland. But I think the top 3 teams are going to get 3 really good basketball players. I think Cleveland sets up really well to take Evan Mobley. He's exactly what they need there with Okuru and Garland and probably Colin Sexton. I think they need a kid that can run the floor, Chris Bosh type of player. I like Evan Mobley a lot.
Now, outside of Cunningham, you mentioned a couple guys already, but do you have a favorite guy who's going to go in the top 10 who's not named Cunningham that you think that people may be overlooking or discounting or underselling?
Yeah, I think Bouknight out of UConn is a guy that I really like. I've watched him play for a long time, and I remember, just some of the games that he just completely took over. Now, he was injured last year in certain parts, but this is a guy that gets to the basket really unlike anyone in this draft. I think he's one of the better scorers you'll find. Kind of just a quick guy. He's risen really high in this draft. At one point he was a mid-teens player. Now he's a kid that I think probably goes possibly top 5. I think the Orlando Magic look toward maybe taking him. They need some offensive talent there, and I think he's a guy that's got real athleticism. He's a great scorer, good shooter. I think he does a lot of things well. I really like Bouknight out of UConn. Another guy I continue to be very interested in. I don't know if he's a top 10 player. I have him kind of in that 10 to 15 range. Kai Jones out of Texas. Texas is always kind of a team that has these long, lanky, just floor runners, the kids that can run up and grab the basketball. Kai Jones is a guy I really like. I think he has kind of a better shade, a potential of like JaVale McGee, but I think better, good lob threat, good defender, can run the floor. I think at a place like Charlotte with LaMelo Ball, maybe at 11, that makes a lot of sense. Maybe down in San Antonio, they need to get kind of younger in the front court. So, I like him a lot as well.
Kind of do with the draft, kind of not to do with the draft. Obviously, there's speculation out there that the Raptors might consider trading the 4th overall pick. At the same time, there's a lot of speculation that the Raptors Sixers can make a trade, sign and trade Kyle Lowry, come to the Sixers, and Ben Simmons might be involved in that deal somewhere along the way. How do you feel about that rumors going out there that Ben Simmons could be out of here, according to Woj, potentially this week?
Yeah, listen, I've said I told Mike this, I'll tell you this, I'll tell anyone that will listen. There is absolutely no shot Ben Simmons is on this roster by the beginning of the season. This is not going to happen. He's out of here. And look, the Toronto Raptors, I think it works perfectly. The Philadelphia 76ers need a different point guard, okay? And they need a different point guard. It makes perfect sense. Look, if the Toronto Raptors don't do anything, they're going to take Jalen Suggs with the 4th pick. Now, again, Kyle Lowry is going to be out regardless. Listen, they made a bad decision not trading him last year. They could have got something, I think, maybe a bit better. For some reason, they allowed him to stay around, all to leave anyway. I don't really understand that. But, I think Ben's out of here. Would it surprise me if it's this week? No. In fact, I hope it is. I want it done already. Get him out of here.
Yeah, see, that's where I'm with you. I don't hate Ben Simmons personally. I'm just done. I'm over. I want to move on. And I've said before, for the Sixers and Rich Paul to have conversations, Jeff, if it's like a relationship. If you're thinking about the divorce, if you're thinking about moving on, you might as well just get it over with.
I agree. That's really a great analogy. I will also say, and I've been someone that has pushed this out for months and years as well. They have to make good selections in the 2nd round and in the late 1st round if they make these picks. They need to stop devaluing draft picks because, again, if they have them, they need to build their bench through this. They do not have a good bench. It's that simple. I know they have a couple guys, but it's likely some of these guys will not be here anymore. They need to go out and really shore up the bench. I have said on record multiple times, this is a very deep 2nd round. I think there's a lot of really good players that can come in and contribute right away. They need to make picks, and if they do, whether it's at 50 or wherever, they need to hit because they don't have that many. They need to make them count.
For more on the NBA draft, as well as sports betting analysis, football, everything, the man, the myth, the legend, he is Jeff Nadu, joins us every Tuesday here on the Sports Passion. Jeff, before I let you go, tell us about the latest edition of the Sit Down on Mafia History podcast.
I do that as well, yes. If you like the mob, you like Mafia History, you like Goodfellas, Donnie Brasco, John Gotti, whatever you like, we talk about it on the Sit Down. It's the most up-and-coming podcast you're going to hear about very soon. Go check it out. We have an episode tomorrow on Paul Castellano. A lot of people wonder, how did that hit go down? John Gotti takes over. We set the record straight. We talk a lot about Paul Castellano. So check that out tomorrow. Wherever you get your podcast, The Sit Down, a Mafia History podcast.
Yeah, the Jeff Nadu Passion Project.
That's correct.
Jeff, always appreciate you jumping on. Always enjoy the conversation with my friend.
Love talking to you. Thanks, Josh. See you, buddy.